Guys, I took the test and I put it into this video file so that we can go through it and just kind of talk our way through it a little bit. So this one first here, right, asks you to circle the common nouns. Now, you've got to understand that there's more than one noun in here. This one is a proper noun because it's a specific person, place, or thing. It's George. It's not that. However, farm is a thing or a place, so we can circle farm. Okay? Remember, nouns are people, place, things, or ideas. Common is a general person, place, thing, or idea. Proper noun is a specific one. It always has the capital letter. So if you're talking about an actual person, that's a proper noun. If you're talking about man or woman or something like that, that is a common noun. So if we're looking for proper nouns, like we said, but there's two of them in the sentence. So Lennie and George. Pretty easy, right? Not so hard. What's next? Pronouns. Pronouns are like nouns, but they're the least specific. So if I'm thinking in terms of specificity, I'd be like pronoun to common noun to proper. And it's funny because people get pronouns and proper nouns mixed up because they both start with PRO, even though they're complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Proper is capital, make that a capital P. Pronouns are like he, she, it, them, us, that kind of thing. So we just said what the pronoun is, he. He doesn't like big guys. What are we talking about there? Doesn't like big guys. Anybody? Yeah, curly. Okay, so circle the action verbs. Two kinds of verbs, right? Action verbs and linking verbs. And basically sentences fall into two categories. Sentences that say what a thing is or what its state of being is, and sentences that say what it did. This one, their dream lasted until Lennie's accident. What's actually happening? You got to think of your subject and your verb. Subject is the dream. And what did it do? It lasted. Until Lennie's accident is all prepositional phrase that says how long it lasted. Another one. The linking verbs. These ones are sentences that say what things are. So Romeo and Juliet, that's your compound subject. And then lovers is a noun that says what they were. And that links your links your subject and your subject complement. So if you got, I don't know, it's giving me those extra lines. Let's try it by hand. It won't be as straight. Romeo and Juliet, well, you'd split it really, right? Romeo and Juliet were lovers, goes over there. Circle the adjectives. The old dog suffered daily. So, adjectives tell us three things. One, which one. Two, what kind. Question. And three, how many. That's all they tell us. You don't have to worry about what they modify and stuff. You just figure out if they answer that question. So, daily tells us when. So that's an adverb, modifies suffered. However, we've got two words that tell us which dog we're talking about and what kind of dog. It's an old dog, and it's the dog instead of a dog. So the is which, and tells us about dog, and old is what kind, tells us about dog. Those are our two adjectives in this sentence. The old dog suffered daily. If you were to diagram it, it would look like this. Dog suffered, and the old goes right there, and daily, like that. Boom. Not so hard, right? Not so bad. Let's make my pen a little smaller. Linking adjectives, adverbs. So George threw angrily threw the mouse. And adverbs answer a bunch of different questions. So 1, when. 2, why. 3, how. 4, where. 5, to what extent. So in this case, if we've got George as our subject and threw is the verb, I like to diagram. It just makes it easier for me to see what I'm doing. George threw. The direct object is mouse. We've got some adjectives in there, right? It's the mouse. And how did he throw the mouse? He angrily threw the mouse. Or what does angrily tell you? Does it tell you when, why, how, or where? It tells you how. Sorry, I was starting to write and thinking how, and I started to write how and then tried to turn that into an A. So he threw it angrily through the mouse. So there is our adverb, which modifies this word. It tells us more about that. It tells us how. I might even make the font, my pen a little smaller still. Let's try another one. Circle the interjections. Interjections give us mild or extreme emotion. They have nothing to do with the rest of the sentence. Nothing to do with the rest of the sentence. If you interject something, you're just squeezing yourself in there. So that's what an interjection does. So, hey, look at that talking rabbit. Hey is our interjection. That's the part that doesn't have anything to do with the rest. When you've got a big diagram, the interjection goes up here. Hey. So in this case, even though a talking rabbit, the whole sentence is kind of an exclamation, the hey is just part of that. But it's set off with a comma. You use that comma in the beginning with an interjection. However, be careful. Just because a word has a comma after it and it's at the beginning of the sentence doesn't make it an interjection. If it's got a grammatical relationship to the rest of the sentence, like if it says, yesterday I looked at a talking rabbit, that tells me when I looked, in which case it's an adverb. So you got to think about those questions. Look at the context, what it's doing to the sentence, not just where it stands. Okay. Circle the coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions. They link words and phrases and clauses. And they are your fan boys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Now, this one you really can just literally memorize those words, and if you've got them all memorized, you're going to know what your fanboys are. So if you see one, you know it's a coordinating conjunction. Boom. And, right? There's a part towards the end of Mice and Men where it says, and then she lay still, for Lennie had broken her neck. In which case, you've got the first sentence, she lay still, being connected to the other one, Lennie had broken her neck, with for. So those are used, they connect all kinds of different things. They're basically grammatical glue. There are other kinds of conjunctions out there, but those are the big ones that we focused on. Prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrases are phrases that act like adjectives.
I'm sure you didn't do something wrong. It's the calendar looks like
Adjectives or adverbs. So, Romeo lost the love of his life. Let's diagram that. I think it's easier to understand prepositions when you diagram them. So, subject is Romeo. Lost. And then love is what is the direct object, is love. The direct object or the subject is never in a prepositional phrase. So of his life is the preposition, and it tells us what the love is.
Isn't that your error? I think it's a calendar error, but we just don't have to solve the problem for Friday because you have that meeting, right? For sure.
So Romeo lost.
I'll let you know.
Might as well.
I don't
There,
know.
the love of his life. And the preposition always goes on the preposition line. This little slanty line here is for prepositions. The object of the preposition is on the parallel line, life. And it tells us what kind of love it is. So it's going right back to those adjective questions. Which one? What kind? How many? So, Romeo. So yeah, the entire prepositional phrase is that. The preposition itself is just of. The object of the preposition is the life, and the entire phrase is of his life. Direct object. We've talked about this already now a couple of times in the sentences that we've just been diagramming, just to kind of going through it. So remember that a diagram with a direct object looks like this. And the direct object is the what. What? What gets affected? That's affected with an A. By the action verb. So George killed Lennie. That one's actually pretty easy, right? This is my subject, verb, object. It's the thing that gets affected by the verb. Lennie's a proper noun, so George would just kill Lennie. And when you're diagramming a direct object, you always put that little half line through, as opposed to a subject complement, which points that way. So, yeah, don't put the subject complement there. So what gets affected by the action verb? That's the direct object. So just as a reminder, Lennie. Oops. Subject complement. Looks a little bit like a direct object, but it totally isn't. It's in fact the other thing. So Steinbeck was an author. We're keeping it pretty simple just so that you can do the diagrams and really just isolate it. So author is the subject complement because it names or describes what Steinbeck is. So your subject, Steinbeck. Linking verb, was. And then the whole purpose of this sentence is to show a state of being. Basically, sentences, like I said earlier, they either are actions, they show what the subject is doing, or they show what the subject is, or was, or will be, or should be, or has been. But those are all forms of its state of being. The complement can either be a noun that names it, it's another thing, the thing that it is, or it can be an adjective that describes it, what it's like. So in this case, it's a noun, it's an author. So the subject complement is author. And you always have the slanty line in the diagram because if you were to push author, it would jump the slanty line and land on Steinbeck to show that that's what Steinbeck is. Is this fun? You guys excited? I really want people to ace this test. That would be kind of awesome. Indirect object. So when you've got a sentence with an action verb and an object, you're doing something to something. Sometimes you do something to that something for something else. So in this case, Slim gave, what did he give? He didn't give Lennie. He gave a puppy. And it's a puppy. And who did he give it to? That's the indirect object. Who you actually gave it to. So, and he gave it to Lennie. The indirect object is who you give the thing to, or who you do it for. And it's usually with a give. So the indirect object is Lennie because it's the thing right here. This affects this directly. And then indirectly, it also affects Lennie because giving the puppy affects Lennie because it's who he gave it to. So that's kind of the understanding. And then grammatically you smush it in there because it's sort of, I don't know, it's not in a straight line. It goes in little circles. The cat gave his master a mouse. That's our first diagram question. So we break this down and do it just like we do everything.
I don't know why that happened.
Line first.
I'm gonna go through that fine.
So subject is cat. That is a common noun. Cross that out. Gave is what he did. Cross that out. And then, did he give something? Did he affect anything? He did, right? The mouse. So we're left with the, his, master, a mouse. Tells us which mouse it is. It's not the mouse. It's not a specific mouse that we care about. It's just a random mouse. So that gives us a little bit more information about mouse. And the does the same thing, only the opposite. It tells us we're talking about a specific cat. The cat gave his master a mouse. And look at that. We've got our indirect object right in there.
But my Tuesday through Friday is not. Weird. Now I'm worried other people might have taken our time to slap.
Gave. Master.
Not your mistake. Just let Nancy know to pay Andrew when he did.
And which master is it?
Thank you.
His master. So the cat gave his master a mouse. Subject, verb, object, modifiers to give us more information about it, and the indirect object right in there. Let's try it. Another one. A small man and a large man splashed across the river. So right away we can see that we've got a compound subject. These guys are all doing the same thing. Let me get rid of that because that's ugly. So when you've got a compound subject, you split it because they're both acting the same way. So man and man. What did they do? They splashed. And it's really important to cross these off, especially as the sentences get longer, because I see you guys losing points when you leave out words. So we use our fanboy, our coordinating conjunction, and to link the two subjects. And we have our two descriptions of the guys, right? Adjectives is a small man, a small, and a large. And then across the little river. What does that tell us? It tells us where they splashed, right? And it's a phrase that all acts together. Across is our preposition, so we know that it hangs off of splashed. Across. River. That's the object of the preposition. It goes on a basically flat line. Across, river. And then the little tells us about what kind of river it is. The little river. Should I give that back to you for a second? So look at that. Subject, subject. Small man, large man. They come together, cross the line between your whole subject side and your predicate side, splashed. Basically, this is what you call an SV sentence, subject, verb. And then across the river just tells us how. It says how. Boom. We're almost done. Wow, that was an incredibly ugly bear. Now we've got some preposition. No, we don't have any prepositions, but we do have some fun stuff in here. So, first thing, wow, that's really clearly just an expression of emotion, so that's our interjection. Cross it off. What's our subject? We're using a pronoun as a subject, that. And what's our verb? Is it an action actually happening? That is an incredibly loud, ugly bear? No, it's not. So we've got an SLVC sentence. So our linking verb is, and then we've got to figure out what it is that we're linking it to. And remember, with the slanty line points back. What that is it an? Is it incredibly? Is it an ugly? It's a bear, right? That is bear. And then we've got words that describe the bear. What kind of a bear it is. And That's your article, which is a small adjective. And it's an ugly bear. It's not an incredibly bear. Even though that comes first in the sentence, it doesn't describe the bear, it describes to what extent the bear is ugly. So we hang it off of ugly. Incredibly. Wow, that is an incredibly ugly bear. And if we were to take this whole chunk here and ram it into this ramp, boom, it would tell us what that is. So in that kind of a sentence, we're probably pointing at the bear and saying what we're seeing. Remember, feel free to pause at any time if you want to look at something. Last one. And then this is fun because the syntax changes a little bit. You might think that because it comes before this comma, it's some kind of an interjection, but after Lennie's accident clearly tells when something happened. So, what is our subject? Oops.
I don't know about that, Jimmy.
Let's try that again. After Lennie's accident, the boys quickly ran away from Weed. Actually, this is pretty simple, really. Our subject is boys. And what did they do? They ran. Boys ran. So we're looking at another SV sentence. How did they run? Quickly tells us a bit about how they ran, right? Where did they run? Let's put that over here. Away from Weed. From Weed is a preposition. And then where did they run? We also have away. The boys. The tells us which boys we're talking about. It's the boys. And then when did they do it? It was after Lennie's accident. So this also hangs off the verb. After. And then is the object of the preposition Lennie's or accident? When you see this apostrophe S, that means it's possessive, which means it's actually using this noun to tell us about accident. So it's after the accident. Which accident is it? It's Lennie's accident. Only time you see nouns, as far as I can think of, on a slanty line is when it's got the apostrophe S, because that shows possessive and means it's being used as an adjective. So, the boys ran. When, how? Quickly. When? After Lennie's accident. Where? Away. And where? From Weed. So, that is a practice test. The official test is going to be just like it, just different sentences. We're going to be covering the exact same things. I expect you guys to rock it.